The controversial rise of Laura Loomer. From childhood to scandal and love. She's the name that has divided America, sparking debates, controversy, and endless headlines. Love her or hate her, Laura Loomer has made her mark on the political and media world. But who is the woman behind the headlines? Today we dive into the life of Laura Loomer, from her early years to her rise as a media sensation and the scandals that continue to define her. Childhood. Laura Loomer's story doesn't begin with the world of politics, controversy, or media stunts. It begins in the quiet suburbs of Arizona, where she was born on May 21, 1993, to a Jewish family that would play a significant role in shaping the woman she would become. But even in this peaceful setting, it was clear Laura wasn't destined for an ordinary life. From the very beginning, Laura's parents noticed something unique about her. She wasn't like the other children. While most kids played quietly or followed the rules, Laura had an unrelenting sense of independence. She wasn't one to back down from a challenge, nor was she afraid to voice her opinions. At the dinner table, she often engaged in debates that would leave her family members stunned. Little did they know, this fierce nature would eventually set her on a path that would make her one of the most controversial figures of her generation. Growing up, Laura often felt out of place. She was quick to speak up about issues that others wouldn't dare touch, even as a child. Her parents, although supportive, sometimes found it difficult to understand her outspoken nature. It wasn't until her teenage years that Laura's talents would truly begin to shine, though not always in the most conventional way. As a teenager, Laura was known for her sharp wit and her tendency to challenge authority. While most of her peers were concerned with fitting in, Laura was already focused on making a name for herself. She didn't just want to blend in, she wanted to stand out. This desire to be noticed, to be heard, pushed her to become more involved in extracurricular activities. Whether it was debating, writing, or even protesting, Laura made sure her voice was never drowned out by the crowd. Her high school years were marked by a series of events that showcased her bold personality. It wasn't enough for Laura to sit back and let things happen. She had to be part of the conversation. Whether she was speaking out about issues at school or challenging her teachers and peers on their views, Laura was already building the foundation for what would become her larger-than-life presence in the media later on. But it wasn't just her high school activism that caught people's attention. Laura was already becoming deeply influenced by her Jewish heritage, which would later play a significant role in shaping her views on politics, particularly in relation to Israel and the Middle East. She became increasingly vocal about issues related to her faith, and it wasn't long before she started making waves in the world beyond her school. As Laura navigated her teenage years, she also began grappling with the complexities of being raised in a Jewish family. While she was proud of her heritage, she often felt that the world around her misunderstood or even ignored the struggles her community faced. This awareness fueled her determination to stand up for what she believed in, even if it meant going against the grain. Her passion for political activism was growing, but she still had a long way to go before the world would truly take notice. By the time Laura graduated high school, she was ready for the next phase of her life. She moved to Florida, where she attended college, and it was here that her fiery personality would be fully unleashed. Laura wasn't the type to sit quietly in the background during lectures or campus events. No, she was already setting her sights on the bigger stage, and college would serve as the perfect launchpad for her journey into the world of media and activism. The career begins. After years of standing out in high school, Laura Loomer was about to enter a world that would reward those with the boldest, most unconventional voices. But in the halls of higher education, a new challenge awaited her. Laura had already made her mark as someone who would never be content simply going along with the crowd. As she transitioned into adulthood, it became clear that she was driven by something bigger than herself. Attending college in Florida, Laura was not just another student sitting in the back of the classroom. No, she was already setting herself up for a future in the world of journalism, albeit a future that would soon become one of the most controversial paths anyone could take. At college, Laura gravitated toward the world of media. She knew this was the field where she could make her voice heard on a larger scale. But it was not through conventional channels that Laura would rise to fame. No, she would choose the path of disruption, of questioning authority, of constantly challenging the status quo. Her journey began with internships and contributions to various conservative outlets. Laura quickly understood the power of media to shape public opinion, but she also realized that to truly stand out in this world, she would need to do things differently. And so she did. In 2017, Laura's career took a major leap when she became involved with Rebel Media, a Canadian media outlet that catered to the right-wing conservative audience. Rebel Media was notorious for being outspoken and for covering controversial topics that mainstream outlets wouldn't touch. It was the perfect platform for someone like Laura, someone who wasn't afraid to say what others were too scared to. With Rebel Media, Laura's career began to gain real traction. She started gaining recognition for her daring and often confrontational style. Her work wasn't about objective journalism, it was about taking a stance, challenging political correctness, and making her views known in the loudest way possible. And for some, that made her a hero, a champion for free speech. For others, she was a villain, someone who thrived on controversy and division. It was during her time with Rebel Media that Laura really began to make a name for herself in the political world. She was unafraid to challenge the left, calling out what she saw as hypocrisy and double standards. She became known for her willingness to confront people head-on, whether they were politicians, activists, or members of the media. Her confrontational interviews and public stunts were becoming her signature, and the public took notice. One of her most notable stunts occurred in 2017 when she made headlines for ambushing the annual Women's March in Washington, D.C. She wasn't there to participate in the protest. She was there to confront the event's organizers. Armed with questions and a camera, she called out the hypocrisy she saw in the movement, questioning why the women who were protesting didn't seem to speak out against the policies of the left that she believed undermine women's rights. This stunt set the tone for what would become a pattern in Laura's career, confronting the left at their most public and vulnerable moments. Whether it was challenging feminist activists, calling out politicians for their stances on Israel, or exposing what she called the biases of mainstream media, Laura's rise was propelled by her willingness to step into the most dangerous of political battlegrounds. And while many were outraged by her aggressive tactics, there was no denying that her visibility was on the rise. But with fame came backlash. In 2018, Laura found herself banned from major social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The reason? According to the platforms, her content violated their policies on hate speech and harassment. But for Laura, this wasn't a setback, it was a rallying cry. In the face of censorship, Laura took to alternative platforms where her voice could no longer be silenced by the corporate giants of Silicon Valley. She became a champion for free speech, using her own banishment to highlight the dangers of social media control and to argue that voices like hers were being suppressed. The banning only gave her more fuel for her fire, and she began to rally others to her cause. Laura's refusal to be silenced became her rallying cry. She would take on the establishment in every form it took, whether it was the left-wing media, the elites, or big tech companies that she believed were controlling the flow of information. As she built her brand, Laura's messages resonated with a growing audience who felt marginalized by the mainstream media. Her every word became an act of defiance, an expression of individualism and free thought. But it wasn't just the media that Laura sought to challenge. In 2020, she took her battle to the political arena, announcing her candidacy for Congress in Florida's 21st District, a seat once held by former Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Laura's campaign was nothing short of audacious. She wasn't just running for office. She was running to shake up the political system, to disrupt the status quo, and to bring her brand of unapologetic conservatism to Washington. The scandals. Laura Loomer's rise was as rapid as it was controversial. While many saw her as a fearless voice of free speech, others began to view her as a walking scandal, a woman whose every move seemed to ignite outrage, protest, and media backlash. But for Laura, the scandals weren't obstacles. They were opportunities to solidify her place as a figure of resistance against the political and media establishment. At the heart of Laura's career was her unrelenting willingness to take on the most powerful figures in America. Figures who, in her mind, were hiding behind a veneer of political correctness, misinformation, and hypocrisy. And with that came scandal after scandal. One of the first major controversies came in 2018 when Laura confronted Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Laura, who had already made a name for herself as a fierce critic of the left, turned her attention to Omar, particularly over her controversial views on Israel. Loomer, known for her confrontational style, interrupted a political event where Omar was speaking, calling out the Congresswoman for what she believed were anti-Semitic remarks. This public confrontation was the first of many. Loomer became infamous for not just questioning politicians from a distance, but for confronting them directly, face to face, in real time. Her words were sharp, her presence impossible to ignore, and though it gained her massive media attention, it also cemented her as a polarizing figure. To some, she was a truth-teller, a defender of Jewish rights, a warrior standing up against anti-Semitism. To others, she was nothing more than a provocateur, a disruptor of public order. It wasn't long before her unrelenting confrontations led to her being banned from social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Laura's followers saw this as the latest move in a growing campaign to silence conservative voices. For Loomer, this censorship was not a defeat. It was proof of the establishment's unwillingness to tolerate dissent, and it only fueled her rhetoric. Embracing her newfound position as a martyr for free speech, Laura launched her own campaign to reclaim the platforms that had silenced her. She spoke openly about what she saw as the stifling of conservative viewpoints in mainstream media, painting herself as a victim of a larger, more powerful narrative machine. Her voice, according to Laura, was being suppressed by the elites who controlled the flow of information. But instead of backing down, she took her message to alternative platforms like Parler and Gab, where her message resonated with those who felt they, too, were being silenced. As the controversy around her grew, so did the backlash from within her own political circles. In one of the most unexpected twists of her career, Laura Loomer was kicked off the stage at a prominent conservative event in 2018. She had come to the rally with a powerful message, but what she didn't expect was that her actions would alienate some of the very people who had once championed her. For some conservatives, her unapologetic style was too much. She was too bold, too brash. And this public rejection from conservative peers marked a shift in her career. While others turned their backs on her, Laura doubled down. She became more vocal than ever, saying that her critics were just part of the establishment she had vowed to fight against. In her mind, being kicked off the stage wasn't a failure. It was another victory. After all, she was being punished for speaking truths that others were too afraid to acknowledge. Her defiance culminated in her 2020 run for Congress in Florida's 21st District, a seat once held by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Loomer's campaign wasn't just about winning a political seat, it was about making a statement. The very fact that she was running as an openly controversial figure was, in her eyes, an act of rebellion. She didn't care if she was criticized. She was ready to shake up Washington, to challenge the system in every way possible. Her platform was built around the idea of fighting back against what she saw as the left's stranglehold on power. She championed conservative values, taking hard stances on issues like immigration, big tech censorship, and of course, her strong support for Israel. But it wasn't just about policies. Her campaign became a battle cry for those who felt ignored by the mainstream political system. Laura Loomer wasn't just running for office. She was running against the establishment, against the media, and against the political class that she believed had betrayed the American people. But despite her best efforts, Loomer lost the election, securing just under 40% of the vote. However, the loss didn't stop her. In fact, it only solidified her place as a divisive figure within the conservative movement. Losing wasn't failure. It was simply another chapter in the ongoing battle she had started years earlier. After the election loss, Laura Loomer's career continued to evolve. She became even more entrenched in the world of alternative media, speaking at rallies, appearing on podcasts, and using her platform to fight for the causes she believed in. She wasn't just a political figure, she was a brand a symbol of defiance, a symbol of someone who would never bow down to the powers that be. Love story and personal life. Behind the public controversies, the political battles, and the viral confrontations, there's another side to Laura Loomer, a side that many of her followers rarely get to see. Beneath the bravado, beneath the headlines and the social media spats, is a woman trying to navigate her personal life, her relationships, and the complex emotions that come with being in the spotlight. And despite the many scandals that followed her career, Laura Loomer's love story, one that's as dramatic as her political rise, remains a significant and often overlooked part of her journey. In the world of politics and media, love is often a difficult thing to maintain. When you live your life under the public's microscope, relationships can become strained. Personal details are often exposed to the masses, and private moments can quickly turn into public fodder. But for Laura, her love story was never something she could keep entirely private. Laura has had a series of public relationships, some that were more scrutinized than others. One of her most well-known relationships was with a man named Jack Posobiec, another prominent figure in conservative circles. Posobiec, a right-wing political activist and media personality, shared a strong ideological bond with Laura. Both were highly vocal in their political views and became known for their shared commitment to challenging the mainstream media and fighting for conservative values. Their relationship quickly became the subject of public interest. As two people with strong political beliefs, their union was almost as much about their shared worldview as it was about their personal connection. While some saw their relationship as a political partnership, strengthened by their mutual alignment with conservative ideals, others saw it as a carefully crafted power move in the media war they were both fighting. Laura and Jack often expressed their shared commitment to their cause in interviews, podcasts, and at rallies. It seemed like a perfect fit. Two political figures aligned not only in their beliefs, but also in their desire to shake up the political establishment. But behind the scenes, the pressures of living in the public eye began to take their toll. As with many relationships in the public eye, Laura's love life wasn't without its struggles. The constant media attention, the social media criticism, and the never-ending scrutiny all began to create cracks in the foundation. Being in a relationship with someone who shared your political views could be both a blessing and a curse. While it provided common ground, it also added layers of external pressure. Some reports suggested that the constant media pressure affected their relationship, adding a level of stress that they struggled to manage. Relationships in the world of politics can often be transactional, grounded in alliances and shared goals. But personal chemistry, emotions, and private moments are harder to navigate when the whole world is watching. Laura was candid in some of her interviews about how difficult it could be to find stability in a relationship while constantly being under the microscope. "The media doesn't care about your feelings or your personal life," she once said. "They only care about the next scandal, the next headline. It can be overwhelming at times." And in the midst of all this, Laura continued to navigate her public and private selves, trying to balance the woman behind the public persona with the fierce political figure who was fighting for the causes she believed in. Despite the challenges, Laura has shown time and again that she's no stranger to reinvention. After parting ways with Jack Posobiec, Laura entered into a new chapter of her life. While her romantic life remains largely private now, it's clear that the lessons she learned from her past relationships have had an impact on her journey. These days, Laura appears more focused than ever on her political and media endeavors. Her love life, though still a topic of interest, seems less important than her ongoing quest to redefine her place in American politics. She has turned her attention toward expanding her reach, using her platform to amplify voices she believes have been silenced and to challenge what she calls the establishment agenda. In the world of Laura Loomer, love has always been more complicated than the headlines suggest. Relationships, like her career, are fraught with challenges. But one thing is certain: Laura Loomer is not someone who hides away from difficulties. Whether it's in her love life or her political battles, she faces everything head-on. And though the path ahead remains uncertain, there's no doubt that Laura will continue to fight for her beliefs and for the causes she holds dear. The future of Laura Loomer. As Laura Loomer continues to rise and fall within the tides of political fame, the question remains, what comes next for her? The world knows her as a political firebrand, a woman who has not only disrupted the mainstream media narrative, but who has become a symbol of defiance in the face of cancel culture and political correctness. But with all the scandals, the confrontations, and the constant media attention, Laura Loomer's story is far from over. In 2020, Laura Loomer launched an audacious bid for Congress in Florida's 21st District, a seat once held by Democratic powerhouse Debbie Wasserman Schultz. For Laura, this wasn't just a political race. It was an existential challenge. It was her chance to prove that she was more than just a social media personality or media provocateur. She had a vision for America, one shaped by conservative ideals, freedom of speech, and a staunch defense of Israel. Her campaign, though unconventional and marked by controversy, tapped into a growing movement of conservative voters who were disillusioned by what they saw as an establishment political class that ignored their concerns. Laura's message was loud and clear: I'm here to fight for the American people, and I'm not afraid to challenge the status quo to do it. While her candidacy ultimately fell short, securing just under 40% of the vote, it showcased her staying power in American politics. Even in defeat, Laura proved something important. She wasn't just a figure of controversy, she was a force. The loss didn't silence her. It only made her more determined. Her name is still synonymous with the anti-establishment movement within the GOP. The question now is not whether Laura will fade into obscurity, but how her influence will continue to shape the future of American politics. After being banned from major social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for her controversial views, Laura Loomer took her activism to new heights. In the world of social media censorship, she became one of the most vocal advocates for free speech. She didn't back down. She pivoted, finding new platforms where her voice could be heard without the interference of what she saw as big tech. Parler, Gab, Rumble, these became her new home base. And in doing so, she tapped into an entire community that felt silenced and ignored by the mainstream media. Laura was no longer just a participant in political discourse. She became a leader within alternative media. Her social media presence continues to grow, and with it, her influence. As the media landscape shifts, with more conservative voices seeking refuge from censorship, Laura Loomer is positioning herself as one of the most outspoken figures in this new wave of online activism. Through her online platforms, Laura has cultivated a dedicated following. For many of her supporters, she is the embodiment of resistance, someone who speaks out against the growing control of tech giants and the left-wing bias in mainstream media. Laura's future, it seems, lies in continuing to speak truth to power, whether it's through her podcasts, her viral videos, or her growing presence in alternative media spaces. But as Laura Loomer's influence grows, so too does the complexity of her ideology. While she has always positioned herself as a staunch conservative, her views have evolved over time. From her early days as a journalist and activist to her more recent ventures into the political world, Loomer's stance has shifted. While she has remained a vocal critic of the left, her critiques of establishment Republicans have grown sharper. She has been known to challenge the GOP from the outside, pushing for a more populist approach to politics, one that challenges the traditional conservative establishment. Laura has become an advocate for a brand of politics that transcends party lines. She speaks openly about her frustrations with the Republican Party, particularly its reluctance to take bold, decisive action on the issues that matter most to her followers. As the GOP grapples with its identity in the post-Trump era, Loomer is forging her own path, a path that aligns more with the populist sentiment than with traditional Republican orthodoxy. In this new era of political upheaval, Laura Loomer may not just be a conservative figure. She could very well be the voice of a new movement, one that is shaking the foundations of American politics from the outside in. Her message resonates with those who feel alienated by both the left and the establishment right. For these people, Laura isn't just a politician. She's a revolutionary, a disruptor who isn't afraid to challenge the powers that be. With each controversy, each scandal, and each victory, Laura Loomer's legacy continues to grow. She may never be the conventional political figure, But that's exactly what has made her so influential. She is the embodiment of the outsider, someone who refuses to follow the rules, who creates her own path and doesn't apologize for it. For her, there is no line she won't cross if it means getting her message out to the world. And in many ways, her story is still being written. Whether she goes on to secure another political victory, whether her influence in alternative media continues to grow, or whether she remains a symbol of defiance for future generations, Laura Loomer will undoubtedly remain one of the most divisive figures in American political history. Laura Loomer, a fighter, a disruptor, and a symbol of resistance. Her story is far from over, and the future will be shaped by her decisions, her convictions, and the continued legacy of a woman who never backed down from a challenge. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Laura Loomer's life, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was she a trailblazer or just another controversial figure in the spotlight? We want to hear from you. Until next time.